The Blue Jewel.
Chapter 9. Part 3. While Arion returned with the jewel that was now the same size as his brother's. Arion felt the power of the gem. She knew everything she could do even though she couldn't explain it. The mags were right, it was a very powerful object. Vanus, come here. Kush called out to the Kendali, who approached the magician. Use the lightstone, please. As always, the Kendali diligently used the stone to illuminate the place. Both the wizard and the half-orc gazed at the mural in rapt order. Agnorok did not like anyone to know that he had a fondness for legends of the First Age, and he knew quite a bit about the subject since in his childhood that dwarf told him stories about the age of the gods during the night. Kush was also an expert on the subject, as in Thissy it was a mandatory subject within the nobility. That glyph is impossible. Kush was also amazed. The Drada exist. The legends of my land are true. It does not appear in any book. There is a glyph like it at the entrance of a cave in my homeland. Kush began to take notes in his book like a man possessed. It was the only chance he had to solve an ancient mystery. The Drado were the lost ones. We're leaving, we must return to the ship. He ordered Aris. Vanus extinguished the lightstone, Kush put the book away, and Agnorok continued to look at the glyphs for a few moments before leaving. They left the temple. They could see that behind them was the royal palace, with its slender towers twinkling in the sun. Vanus stood still like a statue. Arion gave her a push. Vanus walks. Silis Milis. Silis Namarek. Arion had to give the Kendali another push. They walked at a frantic pace, so much so that in the end Arion and the Kendali could not follow the rhythm of the mercenaries, until Kritus began to fatigue. His short legs could not keep up with the pace as well. He reluctantly swept away, and to prevent the group from fragmenting, he had to stop. He decided to pause in the square with the great statue, and everyone sat in the shelter of its shadow. They drank and ate some. Arion watched the god. The figure was a total exaggeration, and the jewel, though large, was not the size in which the author had sculpted it. It was 5 or 6 times larger than the size it had been in the temple. The young woman couldn't help but look at the jewel she had in her possession. Now its size was about 8 centimeters. Arion felt something special when he touched it, and in the center of the jewel there was always a faint glow that sizzled. The Kendali took a seat beside him. The young woman put the jewel away. Vanus offered him some water. It's pretty. Yes, but this place is damn lady. I'll just be calm when we get back to the ship. The Kendali continued to observe the avenue in the direction of the temple and the king's palace. It was evident that the Kendali knew something more about this place that the rest did not. Arion looked at the statue again. It no longer seemed beautiful to him. That being now had a somber and threatening tone. It hid a dark secret, or in the end it was all his imaginations, surely. She smiled unconcerned about her fears. The mission was going better than expected. There were still many hours of sunshine, and soon they would be out of there. The statue began to frighten her. She fixed her attention on the group. Everyone was relaxed sitting eating, but Agnorok got up. A gentle breeze was blowing. The half-orc began to sniff and drew his sword with a serious gesture. What's the matter? Agnorok did not answer, but he saw how Aris and the rest of the orcs began to sniff the air as well and put their hands to their weapons. This place wasn't supposed to be safe during the day, cried one of the orcs. No one answered, as everyone began to take positions inside the fountain that contained the large statue. Kush pushed Arion and the Kendali inside the structure. What's going on? Arion was surprised by the radical turn of events. Stufos! Shouted the dwarf. Can't we escape to the port? Arion asked nervously. The magician was worried. He began to take things out of his pockets and make a kind of putty while muttering nonsensical things. Agnorok was standing still looking at the end of one of the avenues. Finally he answered the young woman. Impossible. They come from all directions. They must use them as slaves. they watch over the city while they sleep. Gosberg was the only one who remained calm. He lit a cigarette. Not even the damned want the souls of those vermin, cursed the dwarf with great hatred. Everyone was in position, making a circle around the statue and the benches. Smaller statues were distributed around the main one. Don't attack until I order. The Stufos won't attack until they've surrounded us, Aris ordered. What are Stufos? Arian asked in amazement. She had never heard of them. Kritos spat as he tightened his crossbow and described them with a mixture of hatred and sadness. They are not lizards, they are not insects, they are vermin that grow and multiply, destroying everything they find. They are brutal, with long and strong arms, short but powerful legs and sharp teeth like blades, and have poisonous saliva. It is rare, they do not usually attack on open terrain, Aris added, surprised like the rest by this unexpected ambush. Gosberg quit smoking and pulled up his pants nonchalantly to add a crucial detail about the mission's situation. They want to delay us until sunset. Everyone turned pale. It was not such an easy mission. The cursed city would not let them flee with their most precious treasure without standing up. Kritos aimed his crossbow at a still invisible target. My people lived in the Brown Hills, the most beautiful cities built by the dwarfs until they appeared. After a war of 4 generations, they ended our kingdom. Addition for our people, especially for those of us who swore to protect our house until death. But today I will have some revenge. Kritos spat on the ground. Arian wielded his short sword with one hand and with the other he squeezed the bag that had the jewel. He would defend it to the death. The silence was terrifying. Arian looked around and began to hear a murmur. Before them they appeared running along the avenue that led to the temple. Arian could finally see the Stufos. What were they? The young woman could not describe them clearly. They were part lizard, part insect, or both, or perhaps neither. They had a variable height. Although they were usually like a dwarf, they screamed with shrill voices. Their tails were long and oily. They kept it high to run faster. Its skin was brightly colored, where red, green and yellow abounded, although there were violet and blue spots. They carried very strange weapons. Axes, spears, maces of very bizarre designs were recognized, surely made with recycled material. Some of them carried equally strange shields. Behind them they heard the same howls. Another group of the same number attacked them from the Port Avenue. The 2 groups gathered in the square and surrounded them. None of the mercenaries backed down. They stood firm. Another pause. The Stufos licked their lips. Kush concentrated more and more on the spell. The orcs drew their short bows. Kritos stroked the trigger of the crossbow while his foot did not stop moving. Agnorok remained in a guard position just like Aris. The only ones who seemed calm were the 2 Denkis, Gosberg watching them with his arms crossed and Sabu sitting cross-legged as he stroked the edge of his great axe. Vanus drew a strange weapon, 2 short swords joined by chains. Arian was surprised. They are Katroas, weapons of my people. Gosberg gave them to me before leaving for Olbiana. There were no words. Aris put her hand down. Arian stood still watching. She had seen them fight against small groups, but this was a massacre from the first moment. A hell of daggers came out of Gosberg's hands that drove the Stufos back, apart from the fireballs, arrows and bolts. And then the other 3 came out, taking advantage of the coverage of their teammates, running towards their rivals. They were gods of death who mercilessly reaped lives, filling the square with blood. The giant Denka was a fury of nature and the other 2 half-orcs their faithful squires. In less than 5 minutes the Stufos came out terrified. Aris went after the stragglers. He had to finish off as many as possible to prevent them from retreating. A group of 8 entered the interior of a huge villa and the half-orc went after them, despite Agnorok's warnings.